Hello everyone and welcome on back into the Bears. This is a video that I've wanted to do since I saw this video come out in on BellularGaming. If you guys don't know who Bellular is, I'm sure everybody does if you're in the WoW community at least. Bellular is a very popular WoW YouTuber who kind of like does a lot of like. He's been compared to he's like the WoW and gaming Philip DeFranco, and he does, because he has very high production value, high video, just high quality videos, and he has a whole team behind him. He's really great. I love his opinions. I love listening to the news with him, and I do. Sometimes I tune into his WoW videos on his BellularGaming. I don't really watch his BellularGaming that much anymore because I just don't play WoW anymore. But recently, Bellular has been getting into Final Fantasy XIV, and he's really been enjoying it. And as a Final Fantasy XIV player who was a WoW veteran for a while, and currently I just love Final Fantasy XIV more. If you guys don't know, I did make one of my first YouTube videos was comparing World of Warcraft to Final Fantasy XIV, and it did actually really well. And I think it almost got 100 views, and for me that's huge. But a lot of WoW players, since this content drought with Blizzard, since Shadowlands launched, have been trying out Final Fantasy XIV. Bellular has tried it out. He is currently playing it and enjoying it. Preach did some videos on the bosses in Final Fantasy XIV, which were pretty interesting to watch, as he has never played the game and doesn't really know how Final Fantasy XIV works. So it was very fun watching him guess to see what the mechanics are and what they do, and he was pretty close on some of them, and then some of them he was just completely wrong because he's just never played the game, and some of these mechanics you've learned and you'll see time and time again when you go through the game and the entire story. So you get used to what the telemarketers do and which mechanics does which, and you see things repeat itself but in different ways. And even Asmongold has been wanting to try it out. He's been kind of hesitant on trying it out because he just doesn't know how his community is going to react and how the Final Fantasy XIV community is going to react. In my opinion, I think he should play it. I think he should try it out. It just kind of sucks when his whole entire chat is half and half, with half people who saying, yeah, play it, do it, and then the other half is being lol, weebs, and all that shit, and it's just annoying. It's just because this game is made by Japanese people and it's technically weeb shit, if you want to go with that, I don't believe that at all. There are so many JRPGs that have been coming out that are 10 times better than your Western games, and they have zero problems at launch. So something that they're doing in Japan is right, while over here in the West, we have almost every big Western game launching with shit. Cyberpunk 2077 didn't launch right. And so many other countless games that would be huge and popular and have had the worst launches, but meanwhile, JRPGs like Monster Hunter and Final Fantasy and Bandai Namco games, they launch and they just work. So with Final Fantasy XIV and WoW, it's just it's two completely different dynamics, and how the developers in 14 talk to the community and the WoW devs just don't. And then it kind of leads to this video that Bellular made where no king rules forever, and he talks about all the problems that World of Warcraft has and how their competitors make it pretty much better. He mentions ESO and all that, but then at the end, he talks a lot about Final Fantasy XIV, and this video resonated with me so much, I had to put out a video and explain my thoughts on it. Well, because a lot of the thoughts that he said are things that I feel too. Now, just a disclaimer, I have not played World of Warcraft since BFA. I quit BFA about maybe a patch or two in, and I just stayed in Final Fantasy 14. And I have not played Shadowlands at all. I know what's in Shadowlands. I know the things that they do have. I would have lost interest in. And clearly, by them even not even putting out a .1 patch until the end of June, when Shadowlands came out in November, is a problem. So let's just watch this video together, and I will explain my thoughts on it as we go through it. So let's do it.
Right then, when we talk about World of Warcraft, right, we usually talk about it in a bit of a bubble, don't we? Because we talk about what is WoW doing right, what is WoW doing wrong, how are we, the players, reacting, and so on and so forth, off in our own little bubble, in our own little corner of the internet. But what, as a community, we rarely address is how external factors impact World of Warcraft. How the world and the other games in it threaten or inspire World of Warcraft. Because we're in a time where even though COVID drove people to gaming, Blizzard still lost monthly active users.
Oh yeah.
So I'm here to say this. Blizzard have got to stop ignoring their competition.
Yes, they do.
And with today's sponsor, NordVPN.com
my video is not sponsored by NordVPN. I respect, don't use Bellular's code if you don't have a VPN. Go use it. It's right on the screen. I am not sponsored by NordVPN. I am just watching the video.
Let's get into this whole big can of worms.
It is a big can of worms, though.
For all of Shadowlands' improvements, World of Warcraft is at one of the most...
See, I don't agree with this part. I think Shadowlands just uses parts that they've used before in their past expansions and made it either some things better and some things just the same, in my opinion.
Critical points in its history. I really do think that. Since Wrath of the Lich King, expansions have been on a tick-tock cycle, right? For every expansion that has been super well received and has restored people's faith in the game, one has followed up that has in some way tanked WoW's reputation amongst the wider community.
Ever since, like, people didn't like Kata that much. I didn't mind it, but I was also young at that point. And then Mop, I didn't actually play Mop all that much. But I did like what they brought with Mop. Legion was good. And I got bored of Legion after a while, but Legion was good. It brought in some new stuff that were needed. Especially after WoD. WoD was bad. So Legion kind of like helped it go up. WoD made it go down. And then after Legion, we had BFA, and that made it go down. And then now we're at Shadowlands, and it's kind of just like a problem.
Of course, BFA
so far,
was that talk. Shadowlands should have been another tick. You know, the expansion that would right the wrongs of Battle for Azeroth and restore World of Warcraft to the heights of Legion.
Nope.
So far, that's not happened. It has not. And it's not looking that likely, is it? A second
definitely not.
talk, to carry the analogy, it might be more than WoW can actually take. That's the fear. Because if patch 9.1 and 9.2 don't provide proof of a change in direction, what's going to happen is that Blizzard will find that they have burnt a lot of bridges.
They burnt my bridge with BFA. I was so excited for BFA. I was like, finally, we're going back to that Horde versus Alliance feel. And it just wasn't that. At all. There was nothing during the story that made me be like, yeah, for the Horde. Because I was playing Horde at the time. Nothing ever made me feel that way. Like, the whole entire storyline during BFA, I was just like, what the fuck is Sylvanas doing? And it's just like, and then towards the end, it was just all about the old gods. And I'm just like, but when I think Battle for Azeroth, I did not think about it being Battle for Azeroth to save it from the old gods. I thought it was going to be the normal, back to the classic ways of Horde versus Alliance, and it just wasn't that. And a lot of the other problems with BFA to go with it, but that was my main gripe with BFA.
Of goodwill will be gone by the time 10.0
so
rolls
it burned
around.
my bridge.
Right
for
now,
sure.
Final Fantasy XIV is actively dunking on World of Warcraft. Names in the WoW community are actually engaging with that game now, and if they aren't asking about the game, they're playing it. Loads of us are. Even some of us are doing sponsored streams, and that shows a degree of community targeting from Squeenix. Right, of course, when Blizzard is busy spending their time jamming their feet in their mouth over controversial public test realm changes, worries over Classic, the Burning Crusade monetization, and lots more. And while that's going on, Square Enix are basically moving in for the kill with a new expansion trailer, a 60% discount to their entire game.
I took advantage of that. I recently got a PlayStation 5, and I didn't have the PlayStation 5 version of Shadowbringers, and I bought that expansion for $16. I loved that. Was perfect timing for anybody who was wanting to get in the game. Was 60% off. It was only like $25 for both ARR and Shadowbringers. That's a steal.
That comes with 30 days of game time, and their recent, extremely successful, and shockingly emotional FanFest.
Oh man.
They have got...
The Soken thing was... The Soken cancer talk at the end of FanFest broke my heart. Soken, you are an MVP, and we love you. And it was so hard to watch that part of FanFest when Soken was talking about his cancer battle and still working on the game, and nobody else besides Yoshi P and the CEO of Square Enix knew that he was battling cancer. That was heartbreaking, and I applaud Soken for continuing to work even while fighting cancer. Video games truly do heal for some people. It truly does. And we love you, Soken.
Got a veritable army of happy players who are proudly inviting other people to join their game.
Come play.
They are actively
it's great.
Evangelizing. And it's working. It is working. Blizzard are, of course, used to fighting off competition in the market. They released Classic the Burning Crusade on the same day as Elder Scrolls Online's new expansion.
They do this shit all the time.
As an example,
it's great
that's,
competition,
course,
but it's kind of stupid.
Complaining about it being too soon. You know, about the pre-patch not being long enough. They knew people wouldn't like that, but they clearly knew, or at least in their own heads, that ESO had to be fought. Back in 2016, they...
don't forget that every single time... Oh, wait, he's going to mention it. But every single time there's a patch or an expansion in Final Fantasy XIV, WoW eventually does something.
Practically murdered, killed the hero shooter Battleborn with the timing of Overwatch's beta. And World of Warcraft patches and release dates have intersected with key Final Fantasy XIV
every single
dates
time
in the past.
Every single time.
Now,
not
Blizzard,
recent though, but
the shoe could
but
very
back then,
much be on the other foot. New World is a new MMO coming out in August, and while Amazon are absolutely shooting themselves in the feet at times regarding monetization, there's no small amount of hype for that game, and yes, even from some of the WoW community. We've got Ashes of Creation, another major game for the WoW community. They actually moved their alpha start date away from the Burning Crusade's launch. That's a game with loads of attention from the WoW community. Then, of course, you've got Elder Scrolls Online, which has just slowly been building momentum and adding to the game over many years.
I'm just not an ES. I'm not
just about everything that I hear recently being pretty positive. There may have been claims of WoW killers, like Wildstar coming in the past. But none of those WoW killers were successful, right? But none of them came around at the same time that Blizzard, well, acted as badly as they do now.
Oh, yeah.
None of them had a Blizzard that was its own worst enemy, to the degree that Blizzard right now is its own worst enemy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, they are.
Look, this is not going to be an emotionally driven takedown of the game, and I do not intend for this to be some sort of unwarranted negativity. But we can't run from what's going on. We have to accept reality and deal with it. There is no amount of burying our head in the sands and pretending that it's all going to be okay that's actually going to help, that will be useful, that will have utility. So we're going to engage with this, what's really happening. There are the concerns that the community has got with WoW right now. The development team does not seem to care about what players want.
No, they don't. At all.
I said seem on purpose. Emphasis on seem. Because they obviously do care about what the community wants.
Yes, they do. I'm not saying they don't at all. I will never say the developers of any game do not care about their community. They do. It's just with World of Warcraft, they're trying so hard to be something that they're not, and introducing more features instead of pushing out content, and fixing features that they shouldn't even have to fix, because it shouldn't have been in the game in the first place. I hated the legendary system in Legion. I wish it never existed. I wish this whole problem that they have with their loot would go away. I wish they would bring back Valor and Justice Points. There are so many things that they did right years ago, and they took it away to implant new features that just made the grind worse.
But they're clearly unable to act on it quickly. A great example of this is the new customization options that were
yes,
one of the
I was quite excited about that. I didn't play WoW.
That were very well received. So seeing all of that after Shadowlands launch, Blizzard then said that they would not be focusing on customizations for the foreseeable future.
Which is so stupid.
Why not? I mean, seriously, why not? It is what the people wanted.
People love customization.
Now, obviously, they wanted that to be an expansion feature, so that's why they did that, and they don't see it as being the perfectly efficient thing to do in terms of allocation of resources. Maybe that's the actual reason, but for the community, that doesn't matter. They got hyped up for a thing, they thought it would continue, Blizzard said no.
What they need to do is stop putting resources on things that players don't like and put resources on things players do like the customization features. Put some of your resources in that bag too, because people do like that. There are people in Final Fantasy 14 who love that. I do too. Glamour is the end game. But people love their customization. Stop putting your resources on things that people don't like these stupid systems that barely work and people don't really like, and put it to things that people do like.
Another point is that Blizzard don't or cannot communicate with us in an open fashion. We do not get blue posts on the public test realm for what things are supposed to be, or how they're supposed to work, or what the developers even intend. If people are offering free labor as testers, at least make use of it, because the current blue posts that they do put up in their 9.1 PTR are woeful in comparison to what they used to do in the past. As it stands, we don't get anything from Blizzard, actually, overall, that is not passed through corporate public relations.
Which should never be the case.
Is delivered by an individual who very much seems like they've been trained for PR. Basically, they rarely feel real. There's then the conduit energy problem. And I bring this up because it does not affect me. Chances are it doesn't affect you. And that is exactly the point. Why does this system take up so much development and community time when it does not matter to the majority of players in the game, and just makes the game worse for those who it does matter to? Remove it or fix it in an afternoon and move on. Some people say this doesn't impact them, and therefore it doesn't really matter, that it's not something that's really worth weighting that highly in one's criticisms of Shadowlands. I completely reject that line of thinking. I say that this is a design that is bad in principle, and that the developers are sticking to it is bad. We should be worried about the quality of the World of Warcraft development team's decision-making if they think that conduit energy is something that should remain in the game.
I don't know what conduit energy does. Like I said, I've never played Shadowlands. But they should definitely not be putting in so much time to fix something that really doesn't affect many players. It may affect like the high end raiders, but I think that's probably all it affects is the high end raiders and the high end mythic pluses pushers. Um, which you shouldn't be spending so much time to fix that. Because if it doesn't work, you should just take it out. This is the thing that I don't like about recently with expansions is that they focus so much on things that just don't work. Get rid of it. They always patch it later to fix something that didn't work in the beginning. Why waste people's time if you're just gonna fix it later? Fix it in the beginning, and then move on. Put actual content in this game instead of trying to fix a system that you shouldn't do. This is why I started to hate WoW as well, because all of these features and systems get broken and they don't work. Push out actual content instead of focusing on the whole expansion on one feature. They did this in Legion with the legendaries that didn't work. They did this in BFA with the Heart of Azeroth points. That man was a pain in the ass. Same thing with the artifact weapons that they only had for one expansion when they could have kept it. But because they put such a grindy system in it and people got tired of it, including me, they took it away. And it's just like, I like the concept in Legion of artifact weapons. You should have kept it. But you should have done it to where it didn't need to progress with artifact power. With a stupid grind, and then they brought the same entire system from Legion that nobody liked into BFA with the Heart of Azeroth. Take out the grindy bits. I don't like feeling like I'm playing a chore, and then if I don't do it, I'm missing out on progressing my character. It's ridiculous.
Game. Even though conduit energy doesn't matter to most of us, in principle, there is a big issue here. We need to start talking not about the symptoms of problems. We need to start talking about principles. Moving on, there is the feeling that our time is not respected with World of Warcraft. And it's obvious.
Definitely.
Between random conduit upgrades, brutally slow anima gains, and the entire renown system, which of course...
I've heard all about the renown system. Oh, I feel like that's so stupid.
...is them trying to turn obvious time gating, as most games don't do, into some sort of system, even though we can all completely transparently see through what the renown bar actually is. Tell me, from a first principles perspective, why is the narrative content handed out to us piecemeal 20 minutes a week?
I don't like that.
Could you please tell me a story that's actually best paced in that manner? Are quests content?
No.
That's supposed to feel like rations?
It shouldn't be.
Why does it feel that way? Alt-friendliness. That's another thing.
Oh, God, yes. Alt-friendliness. Man, did it always suck since Legion. It always sucked. Ever since Legion, it just felt like your alt was a chore. And I didn't even play my alts at all in Legion. I only played my main because I didn't want to redo AP grinding. I didn't want to do it in Battle for Azeroth because I didn't want to redo all the Heart of Azeroth grind again. It was bad. It was so bad. And I hear it's even worse than Shadowlands. And I'm just like, my goodness, Blizzard, you can't do everything on one character. And if we want to have more characters and have fun with them, why can't you make things more easier with these stupid features that you claim are better for the game that you have to redo every single time on your alt? I hate it in Legion. I hated it in BFA. And apparently it's worse in Shadowlands. You said alt-friendliness. You never do it.
We were promised an alt-friendly expansion with Shadowlands, weren't we? But it's not until patch 9.1 that we are getting things like the campaign skips that people obviously would have wanted, transferable soul ash to alts, and a bunch of other issues. I mean, why is the Maw not skippable? The Maw intro. 9.0 launched with a pretty big amount of chores to do for a character to feel relevant. Weekly renown, the legendary memories, Torghast, the Maw.
I just want to touch on Torghast because I've heard Torghast can be fun, But another thing that I didn't like about Shadowlands was the whole Covenant thing. The Covenant thing that they said in the Blizz content, I actually did watch it. Um, said that you could choose whatever Covenant you wanted, and then in the end, it still got min maxed. Like, I couldn't be a druid and be a vampire with the Vampire Covenant. I couldn't be. I had the best one for me was the Fae people, which yeah, I know it makes sense lore wise, because druids, fae, I get that. But if you wanted to put into a system where it says you can choose whichever one you wanted, but there were still clearly better ones, you kind of shot yourself in the foot on that one. What if I wanted to be a druid and be with the vampires and still feel like I'm gonna do well in certain content with choosing that covenant? And then Torghast is just like Heaven on High, and what was it? Palace of the Dead in Final Fantasy XIV. And let me tell you, as a Final Fantasy XIV player, it gets fucking boring after a while. After you've done it once, it's just like, I don't want to do it again. There are people who love doing that shit, and good for you, but I got bored of it. I didn't like doing it. I got very bored of it. It was the same thing over and over again, and there were so many floors. I got so bored, and I personally don't choose to do that type of content in Final Fantasy XIV. So when they announced Torghast and Shadowlands being pretty much the same thing, but with different takes on it, I looked at and I said, nope. But and then they tied the legendary system to that. Oh, fuck no.
Stygia farming, the praying for conduit drops, and the conduit lottery of upgrading them. Overall, playing alts feels like you are fighting against Blizzard to play the game that they have designed.
That should never be the case.
Blizzard
especially when you need alts for certain things.
Interested in solving problems that they see than they are actually making people happy. Now, obviously, problems have got to be solved, but sometimes Blizzard's focus is obvious. We see it with Conduit Energy. We see it with no master loot in a full guild group.
Oh my god, that is like the biggest fuck you to the entire guild groups. That was another thing that I really hated during when I played BFA and Legion, especially BFA. Legion, it wasn't that bad. Was the personal loot shit. There were so many times where I would do a Mythic Plus dungeon and I didn't get shit for the entire dungeon. What is the point? Everyone else is getting stuff, and all I ever got was gold. And then sometimes I got something, and it was not even that good. It was crap. And I understand RNG and all that, and I'm fine with that. And I know there are some people who went through the entire thing, and everything dropped for like, the hunter and the tank and the healer for your group, and you got shit. But at least you know something dropped, and something was useful to somebody. I couldn't even get one specific trinket to drop for personal loot. I would run a PFA dungeon to get a healer trinket for my druid, for my Resto druid in BFA, and I never fucking got it. I had 2 shit trinkets going into the first raid, and I never got a better trinket. It was such a pain in the ass. The loot in World of Warcraft is so unbelievably bad, and I hate personal loot. It's broken, it doesn't work right, and my goodness, I could even go into an entire raid and not get shit with the bonus roll and from the actual boss. It was such a pain in the ass. Bring back Master Loot. You've done it for 2 fucking expansions and nobody likes it. I understand for the pugs that would get ninja looted, but my goodness. Stop, Blizzard. Bring it fucking back. It is a pain in the ass and nobody likes personal loot. If you're gonna not get loot, at least know that somebody else got something they wanted. Not just one person in the entire group in a Mythic Plus dungeon gets one thing off the boss, and sometimes 2 people get something off the boss. And very rarely does it drop 3 things on the boss. It is a lottery system, and it's stupid, and I hate it. And it's broken. Stop with the personal loot. Nobody likes it.
And we see it with the wide array of arbitrary restrictions that we feel in the game. the extremely defensive and abrasive design. The most recent example of that, of course, is Keystone Master. It's going to require a lot more work in patch 9.1 because of the new Mythic Plus scoring system. And the easiest way to get score is, of course, to do every single dungeon on both Fortified and Tyrannical.
Oh god. I hated
Even
Tyrannical.
though the community
Tyrannical was so
largely, and really largely does, despise Tyrannical.
I hated Tyrannical. I refused, and I know I'm not the only one who doesn't like it. I refused to do that week of Mythic Plus dungeons because it was Tyrannical. And being a healer for Tyrannical, it sucked. It really fucking sucks. I hated doing it. There were affixes that I did not even do, that I didn't like, and I didn't even do Mythic Plus dungeons, regardless of the reward. I did maybe a stupid easy dungeon on a +9. And that was it. I did one and I was done. Mythic Plus dungeons are supposed to be fun, not a holy shit, it's this offense that I hate. I don't want to do it. They're supposed to be fun, and then I always had that. I had that rant about the Mythic, the add-on that does the whole scoring, or whatever you're rating in Mythic Plus dungeons. I still hate that to this day. I think that's the stupidest thing in the world. To be able to judge people who've grinded more Mythic Plus dungeons, have more time on their hands than maybe you do, but you're a capable player, and then you get denied because you're not a certain rating, and it's ridiculous. Still hate that add-on. I think it was the worst thing to happen to Mythic Plus dungeons.
At higher Keystone
Still do, and
levels,
I always will.
with people widely refusing to play because of how imbalanced Tyrannical feels.
Oh yeah. It sucked.
What if players don't like our game? Force them to play it for rewards. That is the Blizzard way. Torghast. I mean, it's what's going on here. It's what went on with Torghast. Soul Ash is why Torghast cannot be good. And possibly the most glass-shattering thought, and I think the thing is not discussed enough, the general lack of content in WoW. There is very little to do in World of Warcraft that is not part of the 3 pillars of Mythic Plus, raiding, and PvP. Almost every other type of content has clearly been left by the wayside. And all the rewards
100%.
are largely locked behind huge world quest grinds instead.
Oh my god, I hated the fucking world quest after a while. I was okay with it in the first 3 months of Legion when it was first introduced. I'm like, finally, I have a reason to log in and do something every day. But then I realized I got tired of doing it. I would skip a whole bunch of them that weren't useful. I only depleted the weekly, you do 3 quests in each, for a certain faction, and that was it. That's all I ever did. And they were reintroduced in BFA. I didn't do it. I know I'm supposed to for Heart of Azerite, but I didn't want to do it. I got tired of it in Legion. Why would I want to do it again? And they still bring it back for Shadowlands. I understand that there are players who do like doing their world quests, but I got tired of it. I really did. It's the same damn quest that you've been doing for who knows how many years, but just introduced in a different way with different NPCs or different things to do. It's boring, it got boring, and it felt like a chore that I didn't want to do.
It'll be 7 whole months since Shadowlands has got any content.
And only just now announced that they got a date for their first patch. They should have been out months ago at the end of June. So for 7 whole months, there was no new raids, no new dungeons, no new nothing. For 7 months. That should never be how a 0.1 patch should be. It should come out within 3 to 5 months of the expansion, not 7 months and then just now getting a release date for it. That's kind of stupid.
That's $105 of subscription fee on top of the actual purchase price of the game. That ain't looking like a good deal. Your 6-month sub that came with a mount or whatever will have expired by patch 9.1's launch.
Let me tell you, those stupid 6-month mount things were absolutely ridiculous, and it's a slap in your face when you spend the money on a 6-month subscription, and then you want the mount, and then the mount comes back on the WoW store. It's just like, well, then what was the point of me doing this? If we all know by now, you're just gonna put it on the shop later. I fell into it once in the beginning of BFA, and I regret to this day doing it. But I didn't really pay the full $60. I paid it with WoW tokens, and even then they stopped doing that. With the whole, you can't pay for a subscription with WoW tokens, which is stupid.
And of course, when 9.1 comes around, they'll almost certainly try to sell you on another 6
Don't buy it.
bundle.
It's a waste of money.
Then you start to think about why there is so little content in World of Warcraft. Wasted development time. Case in point, Covenants.
Oh yeah.
They have clearly done more harm than good. Right? I mean, clearly. I think as far as the community is concerned anyway. But think about it this way. You know, between the developers making 4 abilities per class, but people only ever getting to use 1 ability. Them splitting the 9.0 story content across 4 alts. In a way that I think didn't really work that well.
No.
You know, just because stuff worked
I already did my round the Covenant system, but I think the Covenant system was stupid. It's just a rep grind. But you have to do it 4 times. And 4 different characters, and you barely can even do it then. It's doing the alts and getting the Covenant story done is behind certain quest lines that you have to rely on with Renown. Too many to work on and ridiculous.
Good for Legion doesn't
Unneeded.
mean it's working good now. The same can be said for
Class
the
order halls were way better.
legendaries, or even the
Still had
conduits
problems,
and
but
the
it was better.
soulbinds. I mean, there are so many legendaries, conduits, and soulbinds, but players actually use very few.
It's just like the legendaries. Barely anybody used half of them. And there were so many ones that did absolutely nothing.
Was it worth making all of that? Did all of that iteration, time, and design actually translate into players making more meaningful choices? A meaningful choice may have existed on paper, but if it's not one that players actually took up, then it doesn't exist. And just because it exists on paper, well, it doesn't mean anything, actually. Is all this effort best served elsewhere?
Yes.
You know, perhaps on content?
Yeah.
The most egregious of all of them, though, is the opportunity cost of all of this. All of that wasted...
You delayed the initial launch of Shadowlands, and you still didn't have enough development time to put out the 0.1 patch in a good, timely manner. Instead, you delayed Shadowlands, and then you don't even have the 0.1 patch out relatively within 3 to 4 months of that release time. So where did all that development time go?
Time results in other aspects of the game falling short. It genuinely feels like there is a lack of higher concept thinking in the Warcraft team. That they are far too in the weeds to actually solve problems creatively. The entire Mythic Plus system itself in nature, for example, I mean, the affixes are lazy. They are broadly applied, and the whole thing just relies on numbers scaling up properly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see much effort being put into it. Where is the design? Where is the...
And then some numbers, like, there are dungeons where the trash is harder than the fucking boss. Like, there are dungeons I remember doing in Legion and BFA where I would wipe more to the goddamn trash than the actual boss. That's not how it works.
The love, the fun mechanics. Surely we get to have more than just doing the same dungeons again and again and again, but maybe with a seasonal affix. Where's the next level solution that improves the player experience and not just the metrics? I don't know where it is, they don't.
Nope.
Remember how awesome the concept of time walking was?
Oh god, they
Think
did
about
that
what
so
it's been
bad.
reduced to.
It's a joke.
I mean, come on. Time walking is lazily scaled, it's often broken, but it's obviously got so much potential. WoW's turning 17 years old this year, but we're still stuck playing only Shadowlands, instead of, you know, actually having proper ways to engage with the game's whole history and body of content. It's such a shame. Now, I've deliberately avoided doing the positives thus far, because honestly, the positives are not what we're talking about today. WoW has got an incredible history, tons of fantastic content, and for many it does remain an engaging experience in the high-end content, and perhaps for the casual dabbling as well, as evidenced, of course, by how many people actually do play it and do come back each expansion. I mean, for me, doing Sanctum of Domination and the lead-up quests, that will be a ton of fun. And you know what? Korthia is actually shaping up fine. Shadowlands with Valor, with its PvP system, with the Great Vault being better than the older Disappointment box, and other changes, you know, it is seriously going in a much better direction. There are huge hopes, but there are also existential problems. In patch 9.1, Season 2 will feel very similar to Season 1 in every way except for Korthia and the new raid. And it just seems like this is just how it is now. It might keep the current players, but it's not going to grab new people.
It certainly will not bring me back, I can tell you that for damn sure. No new zone is gonna bring me back.
Keep those dissatisfied from leaving. There's no end in sight, and if there is, they should tell us how they have a plan to get there, so that we can understand WoW, have faith in it overall as a project. Now, we could go into why it's like this, between management concerns at Activision Blizzard, the brain drain going on at the company, and the age of Blizzard as an entity. But none of that is important today. All that is important is that Blizzard needs to take a step back and reevaluate. Because while they have been trying their best, but faltering unacceptably, their competition has not been doing so.
Yep.
Especially Final Fantasy. So let's go. This is the only other MMO that we've got recent experience with on the team, but it's also the one that everyone's talking about right now. We'll leave the story of how Final Fantasy XIV became a talking point so quickly. We'll leave that for another day, and we'll just talk about the game. And to cut a long story short, our World of Warcraft guild has been threatened by FF, because most of them are just enjoying it way more.
Yeah.
And this is the case for many, many out there. There's a wave happening right now. While I go through this, think about what I just said in the WoW section of this video. These games are very, very different, yes. But the stuff that I'm going to talk about here, this does apply apples to apples as far as player experience goes. Player experience is the key bit. I think the bit Blizzard forgets. Gear is simple. The vast majority of it comes via tokens that you can trade
much better and
for
much easier.
whatever job gear that you want. You can also buy with currency. Older gear with uncapped currency and newer gear with weekly capped currency. That's justice and valor points.
Which WoW should never have gotten rid of. I never understand why Blizzard thought, hey, let's get rid of a system that actually worked and replace it with this complete RNG. This was a reason why I started hating World of Warcraft and BFA, and especially in both Legion and BFA, but Legion it wasn't that bad. BFA, it got worse, with the personal loot being the only way you can get gear. Because then back in Legion, you still had the need and greed system still being relevant in LFR and Mythic Plus dungeons and all that. Yes, there were still asshole players, and you're gonna run into that, but at least you had a good chance on getting something instead of it being a who wins the lottery this boss on every boss. It is night and day how better it is to get loot in Final Fantasy XIV and such less a pain in the ass than it is in World of Warcraft. It is ridiculous. They should have never done away Justice and Valor points at all. I really wish they didn't. And they should have never taken away the need and greed system and the master loot for guilds. Should never have happened.
Yes, it still works.
It works.
Crafters who are level 80 and have good gear / skill can make a form of catch-up gear to get you into the current content.
Now, in the beginning, this catch-up gear is expensive as fuck when the patch first drops. But after so many X amount of months, it gets cheaper, and it is so you can buy it easily. High quality crafted catch-up gear gets really, really cheap after the initial patch when it comes out. it's super easy to get.
A little bit quicker. The only weekly lockouts that exist in FF are on the last released content. So basically, anything that's not current is actually just farmable.
Yep.
The harder difficulty then drops usable.
You can go back and if you want all that near at least in Shadowbringers, there's the Alliance raids, there's the near raids. If you want all that cool ass glamour, you can go back and farm the near raids however many you want. It's only the recent one where they have a one piece a week lockout, and that's gonna be dropping in a few months with the 0.7 or 8 patch. In like July and August is what they said from the live letter during FanFest. So you can go back and farm that, and then you can farm all of the gear you want for the old Eden raids as many times as you want. And they're also gonna drop the lockout and the weekly for normal and savage for the recent Eden raid in again the 0.7 or 8 patch. That's coming.
Coffers that any job can use. Which
the
is
coffers are amazing.
Like old tier tokens, but with no restrictions. And then progression gear is rare.
The coffers are fucking amazing. It really is. And they drop like 4 or 5 coffers each boss. So a good majority of the time, someone in your group, or you even, are going to be able to get your BIS from the first couple of bosses during prog within the first few weeks after you killed the boss after prog. It is insanely better, and you can choose which class you want to open it on. It's just a coffer for your tier tokens, pretty much, and you choose which class you want to put on. If you want to gear up an alt, you can quickly, after you've done, because it's not locked, until you open the coffer to that class, you can come out of the raid and say you want to gear up your samurai and you're a dragoon main. You can roll for the coffer on your dragoon, and it is not locked to your dragoon until you've opened it completely. You can come out of the raid, switch a job, and open the coffer or open the tier token, whatever the hell it is, and it is specifically for that class. It's so much better than tier tokens.
Already wasted as a result. Also,
and you're not fighting over tier tokens. You're gonna still be, of course, competing for the coffers, but when I was raiding in Final Fantasy 14, my guild my raid static would do it so it's like, all right, whose best in slot is this for? We went for BIS first, other gear that's not necessary last. So we would roll for what's our best in slot. So if X, Y, and Z member has best in slot in a chest piece, you roll need for that. Or if your best, and we only did it's one best in slot piece per boss, per week. So if you already rolled and you got your best in slot if there's like 2 things on the loot roll, that's your best in slot, you got the one piece, and then someone else got, so it was more of a chance to get people their best in slot, instead of just focusing on gearing on one person. Of course, there are guilds who are raid stats that are different and have different loot rules, but that was how I did it, and it works. And the thing is that there is master loot.
So there's master loot for full pre-mades. So
there's master loot.
Do content, get gear. Very simple.
That's it.
In FF, then, alt friendliness is the default, because you can play every job. By the way, jobs are analogous to classes. You can play every job on one character.
I have never made an alternate statement, and I played the same for 6 years. Ever since I started back in 2016 or 2015 or whichever one it was during WAD, I have never had an alt. You can if you really want to, if you want to play with other friends on other servers and other data centers, but that's about to be null and void too in the 0.6 or 7 or 8 patch that's coming, because we're finally getting cross data center travel. So there will be, after they implement the cross data center travel, there will be no reason for you to have an alt.
And gear is large.
Unless you want to play on that, if you're an NA server, you want to play on the EU server, or if you're on the EU server, you want to play on a different on the NA servers. That's the only reason why you'd need an alt.
Largely shared across some roles except for weapons. So if you are a ranged DPS, caster, healer, or
huge,
tank,
by the way.
you can actually use the same gear on any other job in the same role. Melee is restricted due to aesthetic differences, but simply put here, very often, the only barrier to changing up your gameplay by moving into a new spec or class, whatever, it is actually just leveling that job up and playing it. That's it. This game is so goddamn alt-friendly, it's insane. Because it's not really alt-friendliness, it's doing what you want in your character.
Yeah.
Now, to say that these aspects of the game respect your time investment, that is putting things lightly. There's no trash in normal raids.
God,
and there's only some trash in Alliance raids. Like
it's so nice.
At the same time,
it's
an
dungeons,
MMO with tons of stuff to do, so I'm going to repurpose an Asmongold quote here. Final Fantasy is a game that makes you want to waste your time.
Yeah.
How? Well, relic weapons that you can upgrade over an expansion via quests. They are
and you can go back to the old expansions and do that relic quest line if you so choose to. So you technically, right now, you have 3 different relic quests that you can go do. The one in Shadowbringers, the one in Heaven's Ward. I don't know if there was one in Stormblood. Yes, there is one in Stormblood. Yeah, so you can go back and do those relic quests if you so choose to. You don't have to, but you can.
Proper grinds, but mostly gorgeous appearances.
They're really great appearances.
Hunts. Basically, elite rare spawns for XP plus endgame rewards.
I never do them. You don't have to do it.
Here's our free company's house, as an example. It's really cool. It also plays near music, which you can earn from the raid. Cool.
You can earn pretty much every music.
There's also gathering and crafting.
Every single
11
boss.
separate full jobs in total, each with their own gear, rotations, design, all that stuff, relic, tools, and quests.
And there's its own endgame. For a while, people were doing the endgame for crafters and gatherers with Ishgard Restoration. They made endgame for crafters! Instead of in World of Warcraft, where crafters and gatherers are just pretty much useless. And you just click a button and you got your stuff. You don't farm around the zones, and it's even harder to do on your ground mount because it's a pain in the butt because you're pulling trash while you're pulling mobs around the world while you're trying to gather stuff, and they dismount you and sometimes kill you depending on what it is. And it's just like, in this one, it's just like, you go do it, you have your own rotation, your own spec, your own gear for it, your own melds and materia for it. And they're actually, it's needed. You need crafters and gatherers if you want to make money in the game. You have to have a crafter and gatherer. If you don't want to make money and you just want to play the game normally, you can. If you want to be a crafter and gatherer and not even touch the PvE side of things, you can. You 100% can. There are people in this game who just craft and gather, and they have fun doing it. I have known so many people in so many different FCs who there was always that one or few people who didn't even raid, who barely did any of the story content. They do the MSQ, and they unlock the raids and do the dungeons, and then they just crafted and gathered until the next patch. And they were the richest people in the guild. Because that's all they did. They were omni-crafters. They would min-max their crafters and gatherers, and they had fun doing it. And that's another bit of content that you can choose to do.
There are then usually a few other bits of content per expansion, like the roguelite dungeon crawling Palace of the Dead.
This is the one I got bored of doing.
It's
great for leveling, but it gets really boring after a while. Some people enjoy it. I personally just don't.
Bosjan Southern Front with its own progression and abilities.
I haven't done the Bosjan stuff.
That is Eureka, also with its own progression system.
I did Eureka a little bit, but
there's also all the character customization with appearances and dyes. The fact that you can unlock emotes and hairstyles from events and content. The gold saucer
and glamour. There are mounts that you can get during the holiday events. They haven't done many recently because of COVID, and they changed the rewards up and actually the story of the events. Every event, instead of like World of Warcraft where they don't even do that, they changed the event storyline too, and the rewards you get from it, and sometimes you can either get mount or glamours. The only reason why they haven't done that this past year and after after a certain point 2020 was because of the fact that COVID happened and they were putting their development resources, instead of making like new event stories and new rewards for the events, they put it towards the patches instead, which is another thing that we've sacrificed because of COVID. We've lost some bits of content that they normally do. The holiday events, we didn't have a Hildebrand quest line. For anybody who doesn't know what Hildebrand is, it's a funny detective quest line with that has its own story every expansion. It's been going on from ARR to Stormblood. We didn't get one in Shadowbringers because of COVID, and that was another little piece of content that we sacrificed to have patches on time. So they put their resources in, instead of putting it in every little thing, they focused it on patch stuff and pushed the patches out, which clearly Blizzard has not done. So we also felt the COVID stuff in Final Fantasy XIV, but we told them it's okay if we sacrifice this thing to get patches out on time. As a community, we agreed with them on that point, and when the developers told us that, and they were being transparent with us, and we told them it's okay. We are okay with that, and we understand.
Casino that's full of mini games and so much more. And I've not even talked about the well over 100 hours of single-player main story quest content, which, by the way, people say is, especially when you get into the expansions, literally the best JRPG in the last decade.
It is
there is
amazing.
then the fact that each job has got its own quest lines. There's also how fantastic the
They
raids.
stopped doing the whole individual job quest lines in Shadowbringers. They did role quests instead, which is fine. But yeah, I did enjoy the job quests. They still have it a little bit in the beginning and at the end of Shadowbringers, but for the most part, from now on they're doing role quests because it's just they're moving development resources to other things. And we sacrificed the little small bits. Were class quests great and fun and nice? Yes, they were. And you had that all the way up to Shadowbringers. So for 3 whole expansions, you have a job quest for each job. But there's so many jobs and there's so many new ones being introduced, they just said, we're not doing the role quests, it's just easier for the developers, and, again, it's moving those resources to bigger things, pretty much.
Storylines are. And then there's also how the community love the developers for their openness.
We stand
and how much
Yoshi P.
fun they actually seem to have.
I thought that shit was hilarious. I saw that video clip and I was just like, they are... Those people, those developers, and the people on the PR teams, they were getting into it, and it was fantastic.
Their communications. I mean, actually, that's most of it. The community actually loves and trusts the developers, and it's no secret why. Also, almost all of the game's content is relevant to the overall experience, both in terms of story and in-game, because of the duty roulettes. Essentially, time walking baked in by default that scales well and offers currency and XP rewards.
Yep.
Square Enix have spent the last 10 years, since Final Fantasy XIV's literal calamity of a launch, building and improving in the game, listening to the players. So that when you log in, you have got 10 years of great game to play. Because FF does not throw the old stuff in the bin in the same way that WoW does.
Nope.
And do you know what's really funny? The savior of this project, Yoshi P.
We stand Yoshi P.
He forced the developers to play World of Warcraft. That's what their homework was when he came in to fix the project. They were playing Cataclysm and Mists of Pandaria while they were laying the foundation for Final Fantasy XIV's rebirth.
Yep.
And since, they've just been keeping the same thing in mind, the player. This is even apparent in the Beast Tribes, which are extremely similar to old WoW reps, the good ones, with groups of people who clearly advanced with your help through...
Here's the difference between World Quests and Beast Tribe Quests. There are World Quests, technically, but here's the thing. You only get 3 a day, and you can still go back to the other ones if you didn't, say, have max with the other ones. You have, 12 a day, you can do 3 in each one, so you can do, 3 or 4 rounds of Beast Tribe quests, and that's it. And sometimes you don't even have to use all of your allowances. You have 12 allowances, and there's three world quests, 3 Beast Tribe quests a day you can do, unless you hit the next rep and you get that quest, then you can keep doing another set of 3. It takes you like minimum of 5 minutes to do, and they're so simple, and each one helps you level a different type of content you can do. So there's a Beast Tribe quest where you can level up that can give experience, a good amount of experience too, to whatever job you're leveling. There's one that levels up your gatherers and crafters. Recently in Shadowbringers, they took that. They, instead of having 2 Beast Tribe quests for leveling your like job classes, like your samurai, your warrior, stuff like that, they made it so in Shadowbringers there's one for that, which were the pixies. You'd have to at the very beginning. There's one for gatherers called the Katari, and then there's one for crafters that are the dwarves, which are Lalafels, which are fantastic, by the way. Instead of how, like in Stormblood, you had two beast tribes that do specifically leveling your job classes, and then the Namazu were the ones that did your gatherers and crafters. They did the same thing in Heavensward, but they changed it in Shadowbringers, and honestly, it's a really good change. Because it's a great way to, if you want to level up your crafters and gatherers more efficiently, and I wouldn't say efficiently, more quicker. You keep up with those Beast Tribe dailies every day, in about a week or 2, especially if you're matched with them with Bloodsworn, you can get levels so quickly. It is insane. It is much faster than doing leave quests. It is much faster than just... I would level up my gatherers in the beginning of expansion. I would just keep grinding, keep mining the things that are gonna sell well. That's what I did at the beginning of expansion. With my botanist, I would just grind things that were gonna sell well. And that's how I leveled my gatherer. With my crafters, I had to do leave quests, which can be a pain in the butt. And then in Shadowbringers, they introduced the Crystarium every few levels. It's kind of like how we had crafting job quests. They turned it into what the Crystarium role quests pretty much are. That was a good way to level up your crafters. It was a good boost in each people. It's only every few levels. So that's why you had the Beast Tribes. So when the Beast Tribes came out, you can easily level up your crafters without even touching leave quests anymore, unless you really, really want to get them done.
Through a widening pool of dailies in one area. Literally like old WoW wraps, the good ones. Through iteration and making changes for the sake of the player's experience, they have created, I think, the best overall MMO on the market. It really does seem to be that. Because
I agree.
Right now, in terms of the quality of the story, the quality
I want
of the
to go
writing,
to a fan fest
a whole
in
bunch
person
of other things,
so bad.
the content cadence, they're beating Blizzard. And it makes me sad to say that. Because it shouldn't be like this. Blizzard have got the company, they've got the resources. Why is it like this? Now, I'll be honest, Final Fantasy XIV is far from perfect. And it is quite heavily weighted on its single-player storytelling, which to some people is a massive turn-off. Look, I
get that it's a massive turn-off for some people. But WoW has kind of done this entire culture where people will just run through the story content to just get to endgame. And I was guilty of doing that too. I barely paid attention to whatever the story was going on in World of Warcraft, besides the things that were in your face, the cutscenes, the talking dialogue text that would come up on the bottom of your screen, the narration, stuff like that. That was all I ever paid attention to, and I'm guilty of doing that in Final Fantasy XIV too. But now I've stopped, and I've especially in Shadowbringers, I for a while I would skip the cutscenes that didn't have voice acting. I've stopped doing that completely. Especially with the raids, because the near raids and the normal Savage raids content you get for them don't have voice acted text. It's just straight dialogue. So now because of that, and I want to see the story, I've stopped skipping those cutscenes, and I've engaged with the stories. And the Eden story for this expansion, the raid story for this expansion, was amazing. I loved it so much. And it was great storytelling. It really was. And there were some bits where there's non-voice acted cutscenes in the MSQ where you're gonna need to read it, and so you know what's happening when you watch the ones that are voice acted. WoW has done that to where where they've gotten that culture where they don't care about the story, and they just want it to end game. That's how they've done it. That is exactly what they've done. You don't read the quests, you don't care about the story, and you skip all the cutscenes because you just want to get to end game. And in 14, they don't really encourage that, because then you're missing out on a humongous part of the game, which should be the story. The story should be a part of the game. That's the whole point of an RPG. What is the point of having an MMORPG if you're just gonna skip the entire story and just play the end game parts of it? What is the point of that? What is a video game without a story? I understand that there are games that don't have story at all and are fine, and that's great and all, but that's not the games that I enjoy. And if you're not come to Final Fantasy 14, you should at least give the story a shot. That's all I'm gonna say. Give the story a shot, because it is so entertaining and it is so good. I have never been connected to my character more than I have in Final Fantasy than I did in WoW. And I always will say this. I loved WoW's overall arcane lore. It's great. But man, have they ruined it. And what pisses me off the most is that in between expansions, they would put the good story bits in a book and not put it as an in-game event in between the two expansions. It just seems like your character is just along for the ride and we're following the NPC's stories. And that's not how you should be telling a story. In Final Fantasy 14, this is your story, and the NPCs are coming along with you for the ride. Especially, it definitely felt that way in Shadowbringers, when you were the one risking your life to turn into this ginormous monster of light to save the whole entire world of the First. When I was in between Mop and Wad, the book that Christy Golden wrote for Garrosh's trial was so good. It was the best book I think she's ever written besides Arthas. And that could have been an in-game event, and your player character could have been involved in it. But it wasn't. They just mention the champion, and they don't even mention the champion of the Alliance and champion of the Horde that fought against Garrosh. They don't even mention the player characters. It's ridiculous. And then all you're ever called is like the champion of the Horde, the champion of the Alliance, the hero of Azeroth, whatever the case may be. But it never makes you feel that way. And in Final Fantasy XIV, it truly does make you feel that way. It truly does make you feel like you are the star of the show. Like your character is the star of the show. And it immerses you that much. And in between the patches and the game and the new expansion, they explain how we get to this point. So normally, instead of I'm not like Endwalker. Endwalker is gonna be the special case. But normally, an expansion story ends around the Point 3 patch. Shadowbringers technically ended with the Point 3 patch. And then we were getting to the build-up to lead to the next expansion. So from the Point 4 patch to the 5.5 or 0.5 patch, we are leading into the build-up into the next expansion. So we know how we get from point A to point B in the expansion, when it feels like in World of Warcraft, without you reading the damn book, which is a good book, by the way. They're good books. Kirsty Golden is an amazing storyteller. But from people who don't read the books, I went into BFA being like, okay, so how did we get to this point where Sylvanas is wanting to fight Anduin so badly when there should have been peace? Well, if you didn't read the book, you had no idea. And they never mentioned it. They never mentioned what happened in the book in the damn story. Like in between BFA and in between Legion and BFA, Anduin and Sylvanas had a meeting where they would bring the undead to meet their families that are still alive and humans, and because of the fact that the humans and the undead that wanted to stay together instead of either them not liking each other or them not wanting to deal with it because it's disgusting and it's a disgrace to their dead family members, the people who wanted to stay with their family members ran off because Arthur's sister encouraged it. And that was when Sylvanas killed Arthur's sister, raised her as an undead, and Anduin got pissed because she broke the treaty pretty much. Because she started killing her own people, and then Anduin got pissed because that's not how it was supposed to be done, and that's not how it was supposed to go down. And that was why BFA started. That was the whole, but they never mentioned that in BFA. It's ridiculous. You should be telling the story completely, not leaving plot and not leaving just whole parts of it into books for them to make more money off of. I love Chrissy Golden book, don't get me wrong, but you should have this as an in-game event too. It's been written. Just plug the character in.
Think that the MDI competitors and World First Mythic Raiders are going to go to FF14.
Oh, fuck no.
And you know what? Good. Because I actually, to be honest with you,
we have our own World First race, but in all reality, because it's only 4 bosses, it only lasts a day. Because it's only 4 bosses. It's not like 12. So, we have our World First race for every raid tier with Savage, but it really only lasts a day. The only time where it doesn't last a day is when people are World First racing the Ultimate fights. That will last up to a week or 2 weeks, or if it's really, really hard, and it can be, 3 weeks. So, do I think the World First races in World of Warcraft with an MDI players that come to 14? Oh, fuck no. Definitely not. And they shouldn't, because that's not what this game should be about. The World First is like a day event for Final Fantasy 14 players, and then people will watch the Ultimate fights, especially those are the really, really good ones. But we all know that the World First race for Savage tiers get done in a day, because it's only 4 bosses. So, it gets done a day, maybe 2 days tops. So,
I don't think WoW should be made around the MDI and Mythic rating.
No,
Blizzard cares
never
far
should
too
be.
much about that super cutting edge stuff that they've basically forgotten they have the whole rest of the game to develop. FF has not made that mistake.
No.
It has not forgotten that. Yes, FF has got its problems too. Tons of them.
Yeah,
but the thing is that there are not problems that are deep and existential.
Yeah.
WoW's problems are deep and existential.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I don't say this to Duncan Blizzard. I say this because I have heard too many stories of abandonment. The amount of people who have jumped ship to Final Fantasy XIV and
I'm one of those
seemingly
people,
never
too.
looked back
Never
is
looked back.
genuinely shocking.
I love Zepla. She's great. I loved her
WoW
video.
to be that good. But Blizzard needs the courage to actually make hard calls. It is time for Blizzard to do what Square Enix did back in 2010. To be honest with themselves about their game and what their decisions are.
You will never hear Blizzard developers say their game is shit. You will always hear Yoshi P and the development team for Final Fantasy XIV said ARR 1.0 was shit. It was garbage, and they will always say it was bad. And you never... People have asked if there's about a classic realm or a classic thing for 1.0 of ARR, and Yoshi P laughed and said, you do not want to play 1.0 of ARR. You just do not want to play it. And it's not like the whole with Bobby Kotick or whatever his name is, that said you think you do, but you don't in regards to classic WoW, and people did want it. Yoshi P will always say you do not want to play ARR 1.0, and there are people who have been playing since ARR 1.0 and have said you definitely don't want to play ARR 1.0. You definitely don't. They will always admit that ARR 1.0 was shit. And they will also always admit to their mistakes. So, and with Blizzard, you never get that.
Are doing to their reputation. And to treat this like the existential company-wide emergency that it absolutely is. Because if not, they're going to be due for a wake-up call in a few years. Because not only will it be Final Fantasy XIV clawing at their heels, you'll have ESO. You'll have those other games that are there right now. But you'll also have New World, which is about to come out. and Riot will be coming for them.
Oh yeah,
Riot are doing a big
Riot's
MMO
coming
as well. Blizzard may indeed wake up and find that not that many of their 100 million plus users give a shit anymore.
I don't.
If Blizzard take their competition as seriously as they ought to, we will all be happier for it. Us, the players, and Blizzard.
Just listen to the players.
That is it for today's video. I know this is not a happy, cheery one.
I will always applaud Bellular for being completely 100% honest. And there are so many more of the WoW, like, main WoW content creators being honest about the game and saying, I don't want to play it anymore. There were people who I followed, one of them being a Twitch streamer who I followed for years, Brutal Static. He was always only playing WoW on his streams, and I think even in his personal time too, where he would just always play WoW. Always. And this year, he came back and he said, I'm done with WoW. He's not happy with it anymore. He doesn't want to play it anymore. He doesn't want to support it anymore until it gets better and fixed. And there are so many other people doing the exact same thing. I said the same thing. I want WoW to be good. I will never say I don't want WoW to be good, but right now, Blizzard is doing so many bad things wrong. And it's just like, why would I play this game when there are so many things in Final Fantasy XIV that I just enjoy more? The one character gets to do everything. The balancing, the job, God, that's another problem that WoW has that Final Fantasy XIV really does. Class balancing. The gear, the progression, feeling like you're doing something that's fun and not just a chore. Being able to progress on your character and not be forced to do X, Y, and Z to be good in raiding. You won't have to do one thing to be good at raiding. Just get the damn gear. Cap on your weekly tombstones. Get the gear. Do the raids. Do the content. The only thing that they have to really fix is PvP. And apparently they're fixing PvP and making it more fun in Endwalker, because people have always told them PvP is not that fun compared to PvE, and they're going to fix it. They've already said that in the live letter and when they announced Endwalker, they are doing things to make PvP more fun, and that's great. Maybe now PvP will just stop being a joke and being something that's actually doable. I want to do PvP. So, in all, I love this video from Bellular. I felt all of his points were things that I absolutely hate. While no, do I not understand everything that's new in Shadowlands that happened, as I haven't played Shadowlands, I do know some of these features and I do know some of the problems. And I am just glad I didn't go back for Shadowlands, because BFA really truly ruined it and it really burned me. So, but that's gonna be it for my video. Definitely watch this video if you haven't, or watch some of Bellular's highlights from his streams where he's talking about 14. And there are some really great comparisons and some really great points that he makes in those videos. There's too many of them to even watch and react to, but this one I definitely want to react to because there are so many things in World of Warcraft that I got so tired of doing. And then there's things in Final Fantasy XIV that I don't feel like I have to do. And then there's things that I want to do. And it's much more enjoyable, and it makes me want to play more and more each day. So, I hope anyone who is curious about Final Fantasy XIV tries it. If you can get past certain things, you're going to love it. You're going to love the developers because they're just wonderful people, and they truly do love this community. And it's going to feel a lot more satisfying than WoW has felt in the past few expansions. But that is going to be it from me. And I will see you again in the barracks very soon.